What's up, everybody? Steve here. In this video, I'm going to share my recent comic book haul. This is an unusual comic haul for me. I'm still kind of amazed what I found. These comic books did not come from a local comic shop, didn't come from a Comic Con. This one actually came from Goodwill bins. If anyone who's not familiar with the Goodwill bins and whatever the normal Goodwill stores can't sell or don't want, they end up in the Goodwill outlet bins. I was able to grab 76 copies of Classics Illustrated. Anyone who's not familiar with Classic Illustrated, these all came out, I believe, from the 40s all the way up until 1971 is when they ended them. It would just get young people to read, and I believe it also helped a lot of, I would say, just individuals, specifically children who struggled with reading. Obviously, the pictures help. I know for me, when I was a kid, I loved comic books, and I love reading in general, but comic books really grabbed me, and still to this day, I read more comics than I do anything. The art, obviously, is one of the keys to that. So anyone who basically says you can't get great writing in comic books, or they're just completely garbage or just for kids, obviously they've never seen or read Classic Illustrated. It definitely is very good art. The covers are definitely awesome. That's probably why I picked some of these. They're basically great books of history that I know of, or I've read myself, or just strictly the covers were just completely awesome. So, and as you can see, here's a stack and here's a stack. These I'm not going to share. I'm just going to go through these. These are some of the really cool ones. The first up was The Crime and Punishment. As you can see, very good art. 39 cents was whatever this book was. I believe a lot of them were like 25 cents. And for some reason, whoever sold these put a 39-cent sticker on a majority of these. Obviously, I'm not going to try to pull those off. It would probably ruin these books more. They were a little weathered. I mean, you can tell they've been somewhere. They're a little musty, but I mean, majority of books, 60s and 70s, a lot of them weren't taken care of, weren't bag and boarded. So they are going to be a little musty. So that's just come with it. Wuthering Heights was the second one. Obviously, a lot of people are going to recognize a lot of these names of these great books. Another great cover. This one was Joan of Arc. As you can see, this one does have the 25 cents printed on the cover. This one, Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Again, another great cover. Can't really say more than anything. That what blows me away more than anything is the covers on a lot of these books. This one's another one. I wish I could have done this last month with Black History Month. I really think this is another one. Very good art, and just like anything else, these books really are history, American history. But also worldwide history. But this one, again, this hits, I think, very big time into the early years, the great Black history stories that are told in this one. This one's definitely another great book for young readers to read. This one is Uncle Tom's Cabin, another great American history book. As you can see, there were definitely some subjects that were hit on these. These were comic books, back in the day you'd pick up probably, I'm sure, at a newsstand. So American history, this is very interesting, with the Uncle Tom's Cabin and in this one as well. I'm really happy to see that at least they were putting these books out back in the day, back in the 60s. That's great to see that at least they were touching on Black history, African American history back in the day. I'm really happy to see that. This one was Ben-Hur, another great cover. Definitely fits the superhero type action pose. These next three, these resemble more of the kind of Marvel and DC 100-page giant type books. These were 35 cents, which not much more than what the normal ones cost, but these books were a lot thicker. This one, it was Men, Guns, and Cattle. These were special issues, probably like an annual, probably would be my guess. Really cool, just real thick books, the story of Jesus. This one was actually a 50-cent book, which obviously maybe earlier in the years they were 35 cents, and when they got closer probably to the late 60s, early 70s, they were 50-cent book, which again, this was kind of a cool, as you can see, there's a very wide range of stuff they covered in these books. I did not know that. I did not know that personally. I thought they just hit most of the big novelization books that came out, through the years. But to hit something like, the story of Jesus. This one was Crossing the Rockies. This was another 35 cent. This was another kind of a 100-page giant. Now I just want to jump into my favorites, either through covers or just the stories that were inside the books. The first one was The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. This one was 25-cent issue. Again, this is just a great looking cover for the times. Very good artwork. Next one is obviously one of the all-time greats, Moby Dick. I think this is one of the first classic illustrators that I ever saw or read, at least part of, and that was Moby Dick. Definitely a great action cover on this one. Again, it really matches a lot of the great covers from DC and Marvel of the times. This one is another great one, Macbeth by William Shakespeare. Just a great, and again, this is another one that was just another great book that maybe a lot of people might have struggled to read as a novel, but to read as a comic book, I thought was really underrated. To see put in illustrated into a comic book, to get people to read something like William Shakespeare and actually understand it for some people. Up was Jules Verne, From the Earth to the Moon. Jules Verne definitely had some of the greater imaginations, definitely way before his time on his writing. Another by Jules Verne, Masters of the World. This is another beautiful cover art. The one, this is definitely one of my favorites. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. This is probably top 3 covers as well. Just blows you away with the art on this one. This was another one this is when I wanted to show some of the art from these books. As you can see, these definitely could compete with Marvel and DC of the time. I would say this art matches probably all the way up until the 80s, early 90s work. Coloring's not too bad, especially for the times. So really just great work. Like I said, for the times. Next up, The Wizard of Oz. The cover on this one's a little beat up. This was probably one that probably got read more than probably one of the most read out of all these. It's got some staples and everything. It's really beat up book, but still to see that this one was another one. And this was a classic illustrated junior. I did pick up a number of those. I think it was like, as you can see over here, is Little Red Riding Hood. Few of those. So I thought that was really cool. So they even went after the younger kids for some of their books as well, which I thought was really neat to see as well. Next up is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Another really great cover on this one as well. This Frankenstein obviously matches more of the story content, not as much as probably some of the Frankensteins that we're more familiar with from the Universal Monsters, but still a very, very, very good cover on this one. And this one is another 25-cent one. And last up, this is probably that and the 20,000 Leagues, probably my 2 favorite covers. This one is The World of Worlds by H.G. Wells. Just an awesome cover. The soldiers down below, the spaceship, or the space vessels, or the alien vessels, I should say, not even space, but alien vessels. The coloring on this one, again, I'm sure if any kid or adult read this comic, hadn't seen the movie or hadn't experienced the radio broadcast that originally came out for the World of Worlds, Google that for anyone who's not familiar with the World of Worlds radio broadcast. This book has a lot of history, not just, you know, the Tom Cruise movie is probably what a lot of people, probably not very good Tom Cruise movie. Look up the classic World of Worlds, and this probably would have been one of the more great stories with even more of an impact in real world. So to see this in a comic book form is very awesome to see. One more thing I wanted to show before I finish this up was one of the things that were put in majority of the classic illustrateds. There's another great artwork right there as well. And one of the cool things they put in these books, in majority of the books, was this little box at the very end of each story. So to me, for especially a little kid or maybe, you know, even a teenager reading this for the first time, going, you know, really, I'm blown away by this book, but maybe it seems a little like something was missed or something just was a little rushed. You can now say, hey, I'm blown away by this, so now I'm going to go get the original, you know, maybe 1,000-page book, and I'm going to read the whole thing and get, you know, the completed experience from reading. You know, I fell in love with this, so now I'm going to read the whole entire thing. Or maybe even there's a sequel, you know, 2 or 3 books, a trilogy or something into some of these stories that people can go out now because they fell in love with this one, or someone like H.G. Wells or Jules Verne, you know, his books, or Mary Shelley or somebody like that. You can fall in love with their books, you know, Jules Verne, and know that he has a majority of books that were covered, you know, in Classic Illustrated, that now you can say, hey, I want to go out and read his actual books. Some of the other cool things that were in the back, you know, they had like a checklist of all the original books that came out. And you can do, you know, like you could find back in the day, if you wanted to collect, you can, you know, kind of check off things like that. So other than that, that's going to do it for this video, guys. If you liked the video, please like, comment, and subscribe below. Until next time, later.